YouTube, what is up? Today we're going to be looking at Pacific, my 1 to 11 ranking. I did it a month ago. Now we've seen some footage. I'm going to change it up a little bit. And again, this is where I think they're going to be ending. It's a prediction where they're going to be ending at the end of Stage 2, so just before Champs. Let's talk... Where do we start with this one? Let's go to the top. Let's go to the top. So I'm going to, first of all, move Genji up. We're going to move Genji up towards here, and I'm going to keep Paper X at the top. Let me quickly talk about that. I know they lost in the final, but I think the final meant more to Genji than it did to Paper X. I always use this kind of description when I'm talking about off-season events of who wants it more, and I just think that Genji wanted the 3 points more. Paper X, most likely, they imagine, considering their past of like at least the 4 core that they've had, they're pretty much always going to be in the top 3. So I don't think the champions points ever matters to them in terms of the 4th place that you need to qualify to champs. I think they always think they're going to be in the top 3. So they didn't really want it as much as Genji did in terms of the championship points. So that's why I think in the final, that's why Genji kind of showed a better showing than they did when they first met, where Paper X 2-0'd them. Yeah, and I just think they wanted it more. But in terms of that, I don't think I would rank them above Paper X yet. Just purely because in the game that, in my opinion, mattered more, Paper X looked better. That's basically how I'm describing it. Genji as a team overall, very, very impressive. Like, really impressive. I'm kind of putting them on par with T1 at the moment. I would probably... My gut tells me to do more like this, but I think in reality, I should probably be putting them at second after what we've seen and have T1 here. But I'm very impressed with T1 as well. Again, Genji, the bunch of individuals look insanely good. Aaron's starting to look like one of the top players that we've kind of seen, at least in Pacific as well. And yeah, I just think they're a good overall team, but I don't think I can give them that fast #1 performance just because in the game that mattered more, Paper X looked better. Then we're going to go over towards T1. T1's looking great. Their map pool's a little bit off for me. I will say that. I think their Lotus is like one of the better we've seen. I like when they lean into the chamber, so I think that's cool. They mix it up a lot, and I feel like their comfort is... The comfort is on Lotus from what I can tell, but I'm not sure they think the same yet. Maybe they do now after the T1 Paper X game. But I think that Lotus is by far their best map. And maybe I hope they kind of lean into that a little bit, basically. DRX, RRQ. So I'm going to leave my top 4 as this. We're going to move kind of DRX down to the 4th spot. I think the overall T1 look better. When I'm looking at DRX, I'm not fully convinced yet. I think it needs more time, and this will be the time that they need. But in terms of I think they're just going to scrape through basically into champs. It's not as convincing as the old DRX. I still think they look good. I think the main criticism has got to be Foxy on Viper, but it's not a role that he normally plays, so he's trying to just get there. He's trying to learn still, so that's why I'm kind of putting them at 4th. I just think that, again, I will put Genji and T1 kind of on par. So if I'm having to put them down, I would say that DRX doesn't look up to that level yet. Now we can start looking more towards the bottom. Now we have our top 4. Again, this is who I consider will be making it to the Masters. If I'm going to think that any teams... Sorry, the teams that will make it to Champs. If I think there's any teams that can kind of upset them, I would say these two. It was a very slow, I would say poor performance from Team Secret at the beginning, but then they started to look a little bit better. RRQ as well, we don't really know how they look. They had this absolutely savage group, and we've only seen them play against Genji, so... It's hard to actually gauge from that. Maybe I would put them above Team Secret from what we've seen. But again, it's way too early for me to actually just confidently say, like, this team is better than the other team. So I would leave these two at 5th to 6th. I think they can kind of interchange. These are, in my opinion, the 2 teams that can upset and go 4th. With that said, I think Talon could also be there. So I'm going to move them up. I thought the Talon looked pretty good, even though they had the wackiest playstyle that I've ever seen. I've never seen a team, especially on Ascent. I've never seen a team have their drone for after plants as many times as this team. I'm watching Lenny, and it just felt like when he used his drone, somehow the team lost. But then when he had his drone in the after plant and didn't have to use it, they would win. I have no idea what's going on. Yeah, just like they felt like they looked pretty good without having to use like a main bit of their utility a lot of the time. So yeah, they're an interesting team, a lot more firepower than I kind of thought, and they actually looked better than I thought. So I'm gonna leave them around 7th to 8th. Bleed is like the weirdest one though. Out of like this whole group, Bleed I could put, realistically from what we've seen, I would put them here. I mean, realistically from what we've seen, I could even warrant putting them right at the bottom. But realistically from what we've seen so far, I could put them here. But we've seen they've been making changes, so I'm gonna have to put them up a lot more. I've lost a little bit of faith. I could see a world where they're here, like straight up. I could see a world where they come forth with the changes. Zest for sure is a beast, but I've lost a little bit of faith from what we've seen. Agent wise and like map ban wise, it was a little bit off. I think it's one of those things where they've like reached the floor, right? They've hit the floor, and now hopefully they should be bouncing back. And I imagine they're going to be like around the 5th to 6th, maybe even a 4th spot. But in terms of my faith from what we've seen, I'm going to have to put them. With Zest coming in, I would probably say with time they should be beating Talon. Bleed is such a weird one. Like, where do I actually put them? Where does anyone put this team anymore? They just changed their players. Egoist was like looking really good, and he was one of their better players. They lost him. Okay, let's put him below Talon, but I do think in an ideal world they end up around 5th, 6th. In a world where it all goes horribly wrong, they're like 9th, 10th. So I think 7th to 8th is currently like a good place. We'll put them 8th, but probably my gut is telling me above Talon from what we've seen. And then we go to the bottom. We got the bottom 3. Okay, let me talk about Zeta and why I'm putting Zeta so much lower than they were. And it's just a big worry for me at the beginning, right? They played against the Solo Viper comp on Bind against Global, and they just play completely wrong. Like literally didn't play any crossfires, and just gave them duels early on. That was a massive worry. And then I look over towards Icebox. That's a massive worry as well. I think they're playing the map in general wrong. And they didn't lean into any kind of like chamber of when they looked good. They're just using like a lot of Killjoy, and it doesn't right now. They don't have any changes in terms of like a big shift in how they want to play, like embracing the chamber or something like that. I just don't see them having a good season. And I love the team, and I've been a big supporter of the team like in the past years, but this performance from them, especially with how they played Icebox, just completely wrong. Their comp makes sense, but how they're playing it doesn't make sense in terms of like the agents being on the set side of the map and how long it takes to rotate in the map. It just doesn't fit well, and I think that there's a lot of worrying signs at the moment. So that's why I'm going to leave them at 9th. In an ideal world, they lean into a chamber. I'm thinking like again like a 5th, 6th. Maybe they can clinch a 4th. They're kind of a similar situation to Bleed, but from what I've seen, I can't have faith at the moment from what I've seen. So I hope from kickoff, alarm bells are ringing. And I know they have a huge coach staff, so I hope that whoever has the right ideas actually gets heard. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for Zeta. Now, where on earth do we put these two? Because it is going to be a battle for bottom from what we've seen. After looking at the bind, I want to put this here. Then after looking at some of the individual performances and like some of their spacing on some of their maps, I think I go for this. This game is, as much as it feels like it is going to be the battle for last, I'm actually going to enjoy watching it. I'm not going to lie to you. I think Global has more chance at upsetting and getting results against some of these teams. So for that factor, I'm going to put them above DFM, but I do think the DFM will get a win. It might even be over Global, and then they get more wins over different teams. So that's maybe where I'm sitting with it. But yeah, these two definitely at the bottom. If we're actually just going into it, it's kind of what I thought before, but maybe a little bit worse, where I was like, this team doesn't have too much firepower. they don't have too much firepower, and then on top of that, they're doing mad decisions. And I thought that, well, at least they got loads of brains on their team. They won't be making too many mad decisions. And then literally the first map we see is them us playing a solo Viper on Bind, and yeah, that brings back horrible memories from me because I tried so hard to make sure that didn't happen when I was on a team. So yeah, whoever was at the forefront of wanting that, whether it was players or coaches, needs to reevaluate how they think the game is played, in my opinion. So yeah, but at least they've learned the hard lesson now, hopefully. That's all I'm gonna say. Dude, if they're still playing that come to actual main season, I'm putting them 11th. But I have hope from the amount of criticism and just the results. To be honest, the results kind of speak for themselves. I hope that they don't run any mad stuff like that, and we can see better comps, because when they're actually kind of playing together and like the individuals are fragging and the spacing is good, I can see them beating some of these teams. But yeah, it wasn't a great start from what we saw. And then in terms of DFM, we'll touch on them as well. They have some interesting stuff, and not like me when I'm watching a bad play being like, well, that's interesting, trying to not flame too much. Like the stuff is actually interesting and it has some legs. But I kind of think the firepower isn't there as well. It's kind of like May and friends, really, from what I've seen so far. So I think they can get a win, and I would say that most likely their win is over global. But yeah, I have more faith in them than last year, but my faith in them last year was just like rock bottom. So there's that. I think that they can perform some upsets. They have some interesting ideas. But yeah, I don't think the firepower is there. The firepower is really lacking in these teams, in my opinion. Okay, and that is pretty much it. We'll review this, reevaluate this. I mean, we'll just come back to this at the end. I'm not going to do any more changes on this. I think we're just going to leave it as it is, and then we'll just review it at the end of stage 2, because everything's going to be pretty compact. Once all the matches start happening, we won't have too much time for like rest or anything like that. So it won't be too much time to actually review this. And yep, hopefully we're relatively right. Let me know in the comments what you think is like the biggest. What team am I underestimating the most? And I don't know. Do people still have faith in Bleed? We must know we changed the lineups. Like I know people are very high up on Bleeds. Do we still have like a lot of faith in Bleed now that they've changed their lineup? So yeah, kind of let me know about that. Am I underestimating Zeta? I hope so. I really hope so for their sake and my sake and just everyone's sake that supports this team, because not a good first showing, so hopefully they look a lot better, because yeah, I would like to see this team do well. All right, let me know in the comments again what you think from. Let's focus on these two teams. Give me your thoughts on these two teams, and maybe give me your thoughts on Paper Rex, on if you're actually worried for them or if you still agree that they're fast. I appreciate all the comments, appreciate all the likes, etc., etc. I saw people saying that I'm tired and I'm looking tired. I promise I feel fine. I'm just old and I watch a lot of games. That's all it is. But I appreciate you all looking out for me. Take it easy, and I'll see you on the next video.